오 나모 만주 시리 나모 소 시리 나모 오 나모 시리 소하 오 나모 만주 시리 나모 소 시리 나모 오 나모 시리 소하 오 나모 만주 시리 나모 소 시리 나모 오 나모 시리 소하 Kedang zogi chonang la chanchu bando dante kyabsu chi dake chini dibe chonang ki dola benje sangye drupa shu. Kedang zogi chonang la chanchu bando dante kyabsu chi dake chini dibe chonang ki dola benje sangye drupa shu. Kedang zogi chonang la chanchu bando dante kyabsu chi dake chini dibe chonang ki dola benje sangye drupa shu. 所需对地就是没多壮，只让你心里的根拔地，上天心都没得我以为就可以拿到先了结巴说，一旦不容让他们到了康定呀他呀。어디 가나 시리는 책이 나 도와라게 뭐나 이제 제가 통 지다고 책이 많아 싶다고 좀 사단 아마 지가 진짜 다시 봐. 어디 제가 이제 만드는 대화 되게 한다. 그렇지 그런 맛이 좋아하는 리가 피디점은 이제 만드는 대치 피스 쪽으로 되는 점. 대본 주지 대본 다르셔. 제가 제일 라마가 신진도도 쓰 어디 샴바고야 무슨 거지. Please adjust your sitting posture to 7 meditative postures of our channel. I think all sentient beings have been my mothers. All sentient beings have been my mothers for numberless times. They are as kind as my mothers of this life. Even though all kind mothers sentient beings want happiness, they do not want even a small suffering. However, due to engaging wrongly with objects of adoptions and abandonment, they do not experience any happiness but suffering. In our minds, sincerely generate loving kindness towards all kind mothers sentient beings, thinking, how nice it would be if all kind mothers sentient beings had excellent happiness. I will cause all kind mothers sentient beings, may all kind mothers sentient beings have excellent happiness. I will cause all kind mothers sentient beings to experience excellent happiness. Lama, please bless me to be able to do so. 이제 누구나 되게 만드는 이게 내가 무엇이 내가 무슨 이제 누구 좀 타라라는 좀 나와 주주 가다 비전 다시 너무 신경을 Next, we generate compassion towards all suffering mothers sentient beings, thinking, how nice it would be if the bodies of all suffering mothers sentient beings were free from the class discordant with accomplishing virtue, such as physical pain, suffering, and problem caused by four elements. May the bodies of all suffering mothers sentient beings be free from the class discordant with accomplishing virtue. I will free the bodies of all suffering mothers sentient beings from the class discordant with accomplishing virtue. Lama, please bless me to be able to do so. Just the ordinary condition, mandala, because you need another fun, but other than that, I typically what the show the Lama How nice it would be if the minds of all suffering mothers sentient beings were free from the class discordant with accomplishing virtue, such as mental suffering, fear, coarse and subtle discursive thoughts. May the minds of all suffering mothers sentient beings be free from the class discordant with accomplishing virtue. I will free the minds of all suffering mothers sentient beings, the class discordant with accomplishing virtue. Lama, please bless me to be able to do so.
They just watch like the using Monday in market pillars and the magic in what Hana talk about Chima. So what you told that we shall get a shiny the number and she knows for this match.
How nice it would be if the speech of all suffering mothers sentient beings were free from the class discordant with accomplishing virtue. Coarse and subtle negative speech, such as telling lies. May the speech of all suffering mothers sentient beings be free from the class discordant with accomplishing virtue. Or free the speech of all suffering mothers sentient beings from the class discordant with accomplishing virtue. Lama, please bless me to be able to do so.
We just watch like the gentleman going to nothing. Also, the short one and did it to Tata to Chima. Now, check it out that we shall get a shiny the number and she knows.
How nice it would be if the three doors of all suffering mothers sentient beings were free from the class discordant with accomplishing virtue. May the three doors of all suffering mothers sentient beings be free from the class discordant with accomplishing virtue. I will free the three doors of all suffering mothers sentient beings from the class discordant with accomplishing virtue. Lama, please bless me to be able to do so.
We just see the 20 whether the way Jetta to what you thought that we shall get a shiny the number and she knows.
How nice it would be if all sentient beings were free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. I will free all sentient beings from suffering and the causes of suffering. Lama, please bless me to be able to do so.
Ordinary city the town, you go and you do want to do Kusuma. Get on a budget that it was a young to be so easy to follow. But without the personal, you know, to be something yes, you could be out of the sun to come out and you come a shower.
Next, we generate bodhicitta. First, ask ourselves, who should take on the responsibility to free all mother sentient beings from the sufferings of samsara and of lower realms? I should take on the responsibility to free all mother sentient beings from the sufferings of samsara and of lower realms. However, I do not have the abilities to do so now. Who has such abilities? Only those who have achieved the perfectly complete enlightenment have the abilities to do so. Therefore, for the sake of all mother sentient beings, by all means, I will achieve the precious state of enlightenment. Next, we generate all-encompassing yoga mind, the aspiring conventional bodhicitta that thinks, for the sake of all mother sentient beings, I will achieve the state of enlightenment. These transform into a white mundis in one's heart. And the ultimate bodhicitta is one's mind becoming in one taste with emptiness. Emptiness of inherent existence. That transform into a white 5-pronged vajra on top of the mundis. Next, we meditate on emptiness for a short while. That I neither exist inherently one with, nor inherently different from the aggregates. Thus, I am empty of inherent existence. As I always say, it is very important to conjoin whatever virtue that we perform through our 3 doors with the practice of 6 perfections. And the first one is generosity. And the nature of generosity is an intention of giving. So these 2 hours of listening, contemplation, and meditation on Dharma is for the sake of purifying the sufferings of all sentient beings and for achieving the happiness of all sentient beings. And next is morality. Morality is the minds of abandonment. So during these 2 hours of listening, contemplating, and meditating on Dharma, I will properly abandon my physical and verbal negativities so that they do not manifest. Next is patience. Patience is an undisturbed mind. So during these 2 hours of listening, contemplating, and meditating on Dharma, I will be patiently accepting the physical and mental hardships. And next is joyous effort. Joyous effort is a mind that takes delight in virtue. So I will take delight in the virtue of listening to Dharma, contemplate, listening to Dharma, contemplation and meditation on Dharma. Next is meditative concentration, and it is a mind that single-pointedly focuses on any virtuous object. So during these 2 hours of listening, contemplating, and meditating on Dharma, I will single-pointedly focus my mind on the intended virtuous object and not get influenced by discursiveness and distractions. Last one is wisdom. Wisdom is an awareness that thoroughly distinguishes phenomena. So during these 2 hours, I will properly understand the words and meanings of the teachings that I listen to, contemplate, and meditate on. Set a good motivation. For the sake of all mother sentient beings, I will achieve the state of enlightenment. For this purpose, I will listen to the holy teaching and practice accordingly in order to benefit sentient beings.
Thank you. I don't know the for the ma. No, some of the yogi is there. Sima de la Kanda, system of Jesus about Sema. Ni US do or the
Sima Semi US.
Sema US. Sema amazing Sema Jesus for the Sema US. Lima. Think about the Jiba Sema US.
Yeah, so to continue where we stopped last week. So the Citta Matrins assert 2 types of mind, valid and non-valid. They assert 2 types of valid cognizers, valid direct perceivers and valid inferential cognizers. So in other words, these direct valid cognizers and inferential valid cognizers.
What are the Sema missing some just for the Semani? What is so she is it? What was in the as all the things on good about what she did. He thought Russian is what?
So they assert 2 types of valid cognizers, these direct valid cognizers and inferential valid cognizers, like Satrantika. They also assert, like by Satrantika, the 4 types of direct perceivers. So they also, like Satrantika, Citta Matra also assert 4 types of direct perceivers: the self-cognizing direct perceivers, yogic direct perceivers, sense direct perceivers, and mental direct perceivers.
Some of the people do. Maybe was a national issue that you got on it was needing his own business, as a shiro. As a little should that be not that you got on it. Wow, it's got it. Here got that little mother. That's what she did your own business of Kishi Chowder is that it. The mother you got says so the George own business. You Chowder is what. Yeah, since I'm not about that.
그래서 마트에 시바 대신이나 양리당 내중원숨 마트에 시바
수지 오는 게서 즉시 쳐버렸어. 내가 상주에서
Yeah, so self-cognizing direct perceivers, in other words, is self-knowing direct perceivers. And yogic direct perceivers are necessarily non-mistaken consciousnesses. So all consciousnesses all consciousnesses have their own self-cognizing direct perceivers or self-knowing direct perceivers. And self-knowing direct perceivers is not a mistaken consciousness because self-knowers and its object, which is, for example, the consciousness branding things. So self-knower and high consciousness branding, for example, when they are in the manner of non-dualistic, they're in a non-dualistic manner. So the object and the subject being different substantial entities are subsided. So they are real. They are in a non-dualistic manner. So because of this, then they are non-mistaken self-cognizing perceivers, but they are not mistaken consciousness.
난지바를 지시지 찾으고 다 가다 난디바라는 수지 수지지 엄비에서 지시 잡으려 말이 난디바기 잡으려 말이 난지바기 다 잡으리 인구를 해서 다른한테 잡는 인구를 해서 뭐라 엄비에서라 다 지시 인구를 해서 인구비 준세 가르스나 진짜 난지바기 이제 가서 엄비에서 이신체라베 가다 싫어 되도 좀 나오고 그래서 싫어 되도 좀 엄비에서 이신체라 싫어 되도 좀 나왔습니다 지시 예서 당연히 좀 해서 와 디시고 지금 되게 좀 이신 가능 원시 이신처럼 지금 되게 좀 나와 그래서 요 감이 좀 봐요. 뭐 이제 받아 이렇게다가 감이 지금 지금 지나 순지 이렇게 감이나 onda 참아도 지금 되는 거 많아 추리요. 예선자
And since direct perceivers in ordinary beings' continuums are necessarily mistaken consciousnesses, so this is asserted by Chittamatra false Epicureans. So Chittamatra false Epicureans, they say that since direct perceivers in ordinary beings' continuum are necessarily mistaken consciousnesses. So in another way of saying this is, they are mistaken consciousness. They have to be mistaken consciousnesses. So this is asserted by Chittamatra false Epicureans. So however, Chittamatra true Epicureans, they do not assert that sense direct perceivers in ordinary beings' continuums are necessarily mistaken consciousnesses. So Chittamatra false Epicureans, they say that sense direct perceivers in ordinary beings' continuum are necessarily mistaken consciousnesses because as long as it is a sense consciousness, as long as it is a sense consciousness, whatever object that it apprehends appears to be established as an external object. So as long as it is a sense consciousnesses, whatever object it apprehends, they appear to be established they appear to be established as an external object. Because of this reason, they say that sense-direct perceivers in ordinary beings' continuums are necessarily mistaken consciousnesses.
this is kind of that's also the only way to teach children Nandi Bagate, Suchi, only as the teaching Gumares, Imuba Carresana, Munzi Michetavada, Munzi Michiro, Woman's Michet, Chicken Mares, and a woman's Michetavada, Mare is a Michet, open and Ziba Nachana, about Esigo, woman's Michet, and because we need to share around, which is not to go Sarwa. Once in Michet, woman, no, Nashitana, yes, here it is.
So for true Epicureans, Chitta true Epicureans, they say that sense-direct perceivers in ordinary beings' continuums are not necessarily mistaken consciousnesses. So, like for example, eye consciousness apprehending pot or eye consciousness apprehending blue. So they are not a mistaken consciousness because exist. The appearance of blue exists in reality. So the appearance of blue exists in reality. So it exists as it appears as blue.
But because it's just that I don't want to know the issue to a say what. You so the Chida Mantua, near that in Nanzibaria. You did the sushi Jiroa, eating this of the Chida Mantua, near what he has that here in the Nanzibari. The Nanzibari. That kind of teaching us of Chida Martini, Kanda Mantua, so they Manzo, that kind of his issue, so that's on that. His issue, his issue, or that his issue, so the Chicken Maris, his issue, so Chicken Maris. They kind of shape that's what to be eating it from the Chicken has a good non-support. The Chicken is the God, since about Nancy by showing around the pet is not to be eating us. I think in a quarter time. She don't turn to Manang, whom Maris of Takada. She would turn to Manang of this. The town was that sense of the pet. Gasha, that's all she don't turn to Madra. Gasha, that's all. What that did not be so turn to Madra, turn to Manan was that kind of chicken or yes.
Yes, Sunjin,
soon to be eating
oh,
what did like yes, that's no what.
It's sure to do what the Nangi is.
Oh, no, yes.
Yeah. So there are two types of mental direct perceivers in ordinary beings' continuums, mistaken consciousnesses and non-mistaken consciousnesses. Again, this is the assertions of Chittamatra false Epicureans. So for them, they say that the mental direct perceivers are mistaken consciousnesses. For example, a mental direct perceiver apprehending form. So it is a mistaken consciousness because the object appears to be established as an external object, which is their main object of negation. And say that there is mental direct perceivers which are not mistaken consciousnesses. Like for example, clairvoyance that knows another's mind. So this is an example of mental direct perceivers, which is not mistaken consciousness.
Oh, did you talk on that? I don't give any there was the not pay 100 dollars. Oh, they buy in a Wilson in Jalaman tree ship by the chassis order. I think there was Wilson in Jalaman tree ship by the for the Tashin Mantu to Bassava, no division. Over the Tashin Mantu by the person Sinua. Or talk on the door by another Wilson, money. She might be challenged.
Wilson in Chichala did the Matu Shiba de Ingora.
But the one who is Shizarwa. The same about that young Buddha. Tell on the convention of Chishi is very not about not about this Manda since the Wilson have Chishi had legal use in Purua.
So the assertions here is different from that of the Sautantika, because Sautantika asserts that as long as it is a direct perceiver, then it is necessarily it is necessarily non-mistaken consciousness. So as long as it is a direct perceivers, it's necessarily non-mistaken consciousness. So this is different from what we are learning now in Chittamatra. So Chittamatra, like for example here, when they assert mental direct perceivers, they assert two types. So mistaken consciousnesses and non-mistaken consciousnesses. So among Chittamatra, then the true aspectarians and false aspectarians that assert, they also assert differently.
아마다 기시라만 되다 이 중에서 어떻게 담는 기반이 되시와 하면서는 무슨 재미 자고 말면서 나면서 재미이 자고 말해서 그 재미는 있어도 모르지 봐서 이 담으로 이 맞점 지가 소시지 준비링에 여자 얘기를 준비링에 재미가 말해서 왔다 소시지라 맞점 이제 쉬우와 소시지라 준비링에 이렇게 그 준비링에 재미가 말해서 그 준비링에서 왔다 가서 뒤지를 준비링에서 재미가 말해서 그 제마 요소나 간다 수비에 제마에서는 양 이렇게 간다 이게 또 그거지 그거 써도 무슨 거 재미있어 보려고 와 어디 소자 다 간다 수시지라 간다 수지 ing에서 왔다 같이 셰퍼 디디키지만 뭐 해서 다 간다 수지 ing에서 수지 이게 셰퍼 디디키지면 뭐 사실 디디키지면 뭐 쓰다 그런 그지마듯이 이게 말해서 봐 이게 지는 가서 드림빙 원으로 해서 다 간다 드림박 फिजिकली ट्रेनिंग हुआ हो जाए खुद इसे तुंदु चिमादा यो मारे से वो तंदी सोचा what the सेमा यो मारे से जिसे 들어와 सेमा यो मारे से 진지 인의 대주 진지 세마 면 진지 들어와 뭐 세마 면 진지 고 간다 그 여대로 뱃사도 뭐해 근데 그 말에 이 추득이 맞아 리고 말했어 내 벨랑사고 그 진지 원으로 해서 인지 끼지만 뭐
Perceivers are not necessarily valid direct perceivers. In other words, direct the direct valid cognizers. In other words, direct valid cognizers. So because although they are form apprehending mental direct perceivers in ordinary beings continuum, there are no valid form apprehending mental direct perceivers in ordinary beings continuum. So in other words, for this sentence, there are no mental direct recognizers apprehending form in ordinary beings continuum. So in other words, there are no mental direct recognizers apprehending form in ordinary beings continuums. So why, when we talk about valid cognizers, and the definitions of valid cognizers is new and incontrovertible knower, right? So the mental direct perceivers in branding form in the minds, in the continuums of an ordinary beings, is in the nature of it is a smallest moment. So it is the smallest moment. This mental direct perceivers at branding form in the continuums of an ordinary beings, it is a smallest moment. So, and quickly then it turns into the nature of memory. So these mental direct perceivers at branding form in the continuum of an ordinary beings is only lasts for a very short moment. So it cannot become a nature of new and incontrovertible knower. It doesn't become, or it doesn't transform into the nature of new and incontrovertible knower. So this is the reason why for Chittamatra, they say that although they are form apprehending mental direct perceivers in ordinary forms, they are not the mental direct valid cognizers. Yeah, so they are no. Yeah, so they are no mental direct valid cognizers in ordinary beings continuum, because the mental direct perceivers apprehending form in the ordinary beings continuum only lasts for a moment. It doesn't become the nature of a new and incontrovertible knower.
네, 뒤에 간다 소시지로 와. Sunti ingen gata tejimen to sunti ingen chema yo marese sunti ingen chema mewa sonza geji sunti ingen nyasme rori chema chi bi rang ring ge chema de ji yo marese ko ta rang ring chema ro sunti ingen nyasme rori chema chi yo marese bi rang chema indi rang ring chema ji yo ba ina bi sunti ingen nyasme sunti ingen nyasme rori chema ji yo ba ina indi rang ring sunti ingen de wo su do go
yo na konda
rang ring ji yo na de sunti ingen nyasme rori ji yo ba ina 뭐 근데 우리 세마지 들어와 이제 녀석 우리 세마지 리지 요가 있나 근데 우리 되게 소시지 순지 이게 또 무슨도 또 무슨도 또 두고 말했어 무슨도 또뭐 두게 주제 가서나 근데 소시지 순지 이게 코라 인디케이지만 뭐 집에 해봐서 차이 못 나와 차이 못 나와
eso ma tu bai kainsa
또 뭐 두고 주제 가서 근데 순지 이게 이피 마시 봐 차대로와 인디케이지 마서도 차시 차다고 차이 못 나와 차이 못 나와 손자 아ten디 소수 지우 지지 네 순진이 녀석들 우리 되게 차이 못 나와 무슨 또 되게 우리 지금 뭐야 얘네 차이 못 나와 무슨 또 되게 간사이 차이 못 나와 무슨 또 신체라 그러면 수수 지우 자원이 해요
di kaso hoy mi da ba
뭐 차이 못 나와 무슨 동기 지조가 있나 아비지라 이거를 마다 쉐바 봐봐 마도 수수 지우 지가 차이 못 나와 무슨 동기 지요 말 근데 순자 다들 간다 순진이 녀석들 우리 제마 요 말이 있을 때 되시고 나 순진이 녀석들 우리 제마 지어 봐야 돼 순진이 무슨 또 그러와 그 순진이 무슨 또 그래 소시지 근데 소지 순진이 무슨 또 봐이나 그 순진이 되고 믿기지만 뭐 집에 쉬어서 꼭 차이 못 봐래 차이 못 봐 무슨 또 그래 그 차이 못 봐 무슨 또 이거 말이 다 된다 그래
yeah and some non-recognizers yeah di kaso rangri yang chema yo marwa rangri yang chema yo maris yeah so they for them self-knower also there is no valid self-knowers or the self-knowers are not valid cognizers so because if it existed then the self-knower have to realize directly the mental direct perceivers mental direct perceivers in the continuums of an ordinary beings so yeah I repeat so for them self-knowers are not valid cognizers because if it existed then the self-knower must directly realize the mental direct perceivers in the continuum of an ordinary beings however the self-knower doesn't realize that because these mental direct perceivers apprehending form in an ordinary being's continuum is a smallest moment. It is the smallest moment or the phenomenal friction. So it's a smallest moment. Then since it is the smallest moment, it is a subtle impermanence. So, and these subtle impermanence can only be directly realized by Arya beings, not by ordinary beings. Therefore, we say that there is no the self-knower. There is no self-knower valid cognizers because if there is self-knower that is valid cognizers, then it has to be self-knower has to directly realize the mental direct perceivers in the ordinary beings continuum. However, these self-knower are unable to realize so because this mental direct perceivers apprehending form is a smallest moment, is a phenomenal fractions, and it is a subtle impermanence. And this subtle impermanence can only be directly realized by Arya beings, not by an ordinary beings. Therefore, they say that self-knower, there is no self-knower or valid cognizers.
내가 나시 생기 와면서 기진이가 제모만 다 주는 거 되고 와. 내가 와면서 기진이가 제모만인데 거 되고 다 기진이가 된 제모 말에 가서 이거 뭐 기진이가 되게 다 들어와. 거 되고 와.
Yeah, so as it says here, an ordinary being self-cognizers or self-knowers, experiencing a form apprehending mental direct perceivers, are non-valid cognizers, so they are not valid cognizers. And also, the second moment of a form apprehending sense direct perceivers of an ordinary being are non-valid cognizers. So again, second moment of form apprehending sense direct perceivers of ordinary beings, they are not valid cognizers, because valid cognizers has to be new and incontrovertible. So there are four types of yogic direct perceivers. So as long as it is a yogic direct perceivers, it only exists in the continuum of an Arya being. So it doesn't exist in the ordinary being's continuum. So these four types of yogic direct perceivers are yogic direct perceivers that directly realize subtle impermanence, that directly realize subtle selflessness of persons, directly realize coarse selflessness of persons, and that directly realize selflessness of phenomena. So like Satrantika, Siddhamatra also assert that valid inferential cognizers, in other words, inferential valid cognizers are necessarily conceptions. So in other words, is conceptual consciousness, conceptions or conceptual consciousness, conceptual thoughts. If it is an inferential cognizers with respect to a phenomenon, it is not necessarily a conception or conceptual consciousness with respect to that phenomenon, because although an inferential cognizer realizing sound to be impermanent is an inferential cognizer with respect to sound's emptiness of permanence, the sounds being empty of permanence. So even though it is an inferential cognizer with respect to sounds being empty of permanence, it is not conceptions or conceptual consciousness with respect to that. And this is because if it is a conception with respect to a phenomenon, it is pervaded by the aspects of that phenomenon appearing to it. So it means that the aspect of that phenomenon have to appear to it. And with regard to an inferential cognizer realizing sound as impermanent, aspects of sound's emptiness of permanent does not appear. So this is one sentence here. So then Kishla is going to explain.
那么大把一把我是多为的，大把一把搞了话的，大把买大修了国产了，看的，我一把他国产的，大把买一把修了国产的，看的，修了国产的，然后西西过，他国产的看的，我领导我的看的。
ini tapi tungwa ki namba di shagyo
ma yes
di ma sha zang ni de musu ma do
ma sha de ko da ta tungwa de ngus ma ba yes was kan ko yes
yeah. So regarding this, if it is an inferential cognizer with respect to a phenomenon, it is not necessarily conceptions with respect to that phenomenon. Because, for example, an inferential cognizer realizing sound to be impermanent is an inferential cognizer with respect to sound's emptiness of permanence. It is not a conception with respect to that. So regarding this, and yeah, so when we talk about inferential cognizers, then inferential cognizers realize in dependence on the correct reasoning, right? So this I have mentioned before, so I'm not going to go through it again. So talking about the example here, inferential cognizer realizing the sound as impermanent. So when it says that it is an inferential cognizer, that is an inferential cognizer realizing sound as impermanent, it means that this inferential cognizer explicitly realize the sound as being impermanent. So the aspects of sound being impermanent here. So the aspect of sound being impermanent appears to the consciousness. So, and while one explicitly realizes sound as impermanent, as implicitly, one also realizes the sound as empty of permanence. So it doesn't explicitly realize the sound as empty of impermanence. It only implicitly realizes the sound as empty of being permanent, empty of permanence. So because when one explicitly realizes that how the sound as impermanent, it already negates sound as being permanent, right? So so implicitly, this implicitly it realizes the non-impermanence or the empty of permanence implicitly. So it explicitly realizes sound as impermanent. Implicitly, it realizes that sound is empty of being permanent or empty of permanence. So since it doesn't explicitly realize it, the aspects of sound being empty of permanence doesn't appear.
啥当然了，什么几个元素比较是都是那个的，什么几个元素比较是，
什么几
个我是元素比较是，这大多这说的大部分的，什么几个元素比较的也是什么几个，落什么几个
啊，落什
么几个元素比较的，几个是
元素比较
的，这么大把的这大部分什么几个元素比较的也是，那什么几个元素比较也就是说的，那这么大多的结把什么别的。这么大把的，这到比东啊，你看的，金额是多的，继续了多，也是很大。元素底下是吧？
第什么几个元素底下你有了，元素底下你有的，
这个也是。这么大把的元素底下当，这到比多的数底下也是很大。我都是元素底下是吧？
可对于那点什么你底下有了，
有等下周嘛？
下周。
因为创造底下有的。
Yeah. So when we talk about valid cognizers, so a valid cognizers has two objects of comprehensions. So one first object of comprehension is the explicit one, and the second object of comprehension is implicit object of comprehensions. So for this example, inferential cognizer realizing sound to be impermanent, then sound being impermanent is the explicit object of comprehensions, and sound being empty of permanence is the implicit object of comprehension.
那我这边我是哪里个话？那的情绪是呢，不要了明年 Dadi taban zingi tan shiurwa.
Mini.
Or dala mini dadi mi chibachi daranchi. Dala mini da taban zingi tan shi. Dala mini da mataban zingi semachi. Inindwa. Chigi drakila. Ini mi wajirwa. Da taban zingi tan shi tela. Da taban zingi tan shi chigi dala mi urwa. Chigi dala mi urwa. Da matato ji jepati chigi dala mi urwa.
Jebarwe.
Da sema do jepati. Da matato bi jepati dala mi urwa.
Niga dala mi.
Niga dala. Shichila mini purin zintang ngengar takata zintang kewa. Shichila mini zintang kewa rungdoa. Chigi dra taban zindoa, chigi dra mataban zindoa. Wotan zintang ngenga. Dan zintang ngenga yin shinchila. Zintang ngenga yin di. Dra di mitaba tong di. Dra taban zingin zimbati. Da susu jilani dra taban zingin zimbati kaatsa.
Dra mitaba tong.
Dra mitaba tong di. Dra taban shindigin zimbati di kaatsa takata.
Dra taban zimbe tang zimbe.
Tansi kaatsa takata. 가르치는 가서는 아니 드라마 따바 하고 현찰이 이 드라마 따바 또자디 이 안장이 드라마 지금 말아. 드라마 예상 말아. 오데 분명한가 저데 무슨 개발해서디 대단다 지혜다. 이거는 임발래거든. 그 가샤지 개와지도 파타다 가는다. 실질을 미고라 실드라라래 니가 있었지. 인다 창고는 린데죠. 어때 지리샤네.
So to give you an example, sound. So the basis is sound. Then observing this sound, then there are two. So one is the permanent grasping, apprehending, permanent apprehensions of permanent grasping, apprehending sound as permanent. Then upon observing the same basis, then another one is inferential cognizer, apprehending the sound as impermanent. So there are two. One is permanent grasping, another one is inferential cognizer. So permanent grasping apprehends sound, the same objects of observation, as permanent. And inferential cognizer apprehend the same basis, which is sound, as impermanent. So sound is the only one basis here. So one basis, but with directly opposing modes of apprehensions. Directly contradictory modes of comprehension. Directly contradictory modes of apprehensions. Even though the basis or the object is one, however, the modes of apprehensions are directly contradictory. So when one realizes sound as impermanent, then one has already negated a permanent grasping, apprehending sound as permanent, because the modes of apprehending are directly contradictory, right? So when one realizes that sound as impermanent, then one has already negated the permanent grasping, apprehending sound as permanent. So when one realizes sound as impermanent, another way of saying this is, when one realizes sound as impermanent, one will no longer think that the sound is permanent.
다시 집발에 가서 공부 나머지는 다 집발에 간다. 신당 가서 신당질 빼셔서 다른 디스코치에서 간다. 밑에 희생하다 코 배와 이마 하고 그러와. 배와 이마 희우다 코문에 전에 밑에 희생인데 배와랑 레세 하고 어디 아메리카 미 많이 봐슈라. 못 살간다. 아메리카 미 많이 봐슈라. 다 오차다. 와, 가르치는스나 가만히 먹으면 사고 그러와. 그래서 사고 자디 아메리카 많이 받아 슈라. 하고 살. 이렇게. 뭐 예수스나 들이 계시고 그런다. 와.
So also then when we talk about the explicit objects of observations and implicit objects of observations. So then another example for this is person who is named Tashi. So when one knows that this Tashi is a Tibetan, then meaning that one explicitly realizes that Tashi is a Tibetan. So at the same time, implicitly, one also knows that Tashi is not a Caucasian. It's not an American or a Caucasian. So this is how the object, the explicit and implicit object of observation. One explicitly knows that Tashi is a Tibetan, so implicitly one also knows that, or one also comprehends that, one also knows that or understand that Tashi is not a Caucasian. So before one knows that Tashi is a Tibetan, then one has to go through checkings or investigations, right? So after investigating and one explicitly knows that Tashi is a Tibetan, then at the same time, one also knows that Tashi is not a Caucasian or is not an American. So there's no need to check whether he is a Caucasian or American anymore, because you have already done your checking to ensure that the Tibetan Tashi is a Tibetan. So there is no need to check when we want to understand that whether he is a Caucasian or not. So there is no need to check anymore. Yeah. So regarding that, a valley cognizes has two objects of comprehension, explicit and implicit. Another example is like this: a conceptual consciousness apprehending a thought. Then it explicitly understands. It explicitly realizes the thought and implicitly understands the opposite from non-thoughts. So a bit difficult to understand. So basically, for a conceptual consciousness apprehending thought, it explicitly realizes the thought and implicitly understands the opposite from non-thoughts.
Yeah, that really the thing was a dumb goal, but I was to try and expand that to have.
So before I move on to modes of asserting selflessness, do you have any questions? And if you have any, you have questions, then you can ask now. Is anyone talking? No. I assume no question, or someone is talking, but I don't hear anything. No one is talking at all. Tu as 유사 말하기 전에 채팅해도.
네. 그거 맨날 때가 좀 맞지 이거. 이거 있어.
That's
right. 또 받아면 되지 진도와. 그다음에 되지 되는 말도 있어. 그거 매번이나.
Yeah. So if you have no questions, then I will move on to number 6 outline. Number 6, modes of asserting selflessness.
다음에 되지 간다. that's the kanza ke dame para ni chinge thara ji ba me chin go sun da la se ba ji ba re kanza ta ji ro ji ki to de kanza ke dame ra ba chi kanza ranja de ze de ki to de ba kanza ke dame mo se la ne I think was kan ya 제가 뭐 또 대 봐도 처음에 저런 지고 지정을 해. 근데 센서 봐 지고 지정을 하래. 참. 먼저 아마도 현재 정말 지고 지정이다.
So their modes of proceeding illustrations of coarse and subtle selflessness of person is like that of the systems of Svatantika, Madhyamaka, and below. So basically, except for Prasentika, Madhyamaka, Svatantika, Madhyamaka, and below Svatantika, Chittamatra, for example, then they are similar in proceeding the illustrations of coarse and subtle selflessness of persons. So the core selflessness of persons is the permanentless and independent person. The empty of being permanent, partless, and independent person is the core selflessness of person, and the empty of being self-sufficient, substantially existent person is the subtle selflessness of person. So these assertions are commonly asserted by Svatantika Madhyamaka and below.
Oh, did you know? Kanzaki Dame Tara Dishi. That Chuchi Dame Chigita, so the Sumatiki Tony Silva. Chuchi Dame, the Tanga said about it. Dame the Dishawa. So the Sutima Tema Zigi Toma. Dame. I did Kashit, so the Sutima Zigi. So the Sutima Zigi to be one or Dame Tishiro. So,
Senshi did, right? So, an illustration of the selflessness of phenomena is an emptiness that is a form, and its form apprehending valid recognizes emptiness of being other substances. So, in another way of saying this is an illustration of the selflessness of phenomena is an emptiness that is a form, and a valid cognizer apprehending form are empty of being different substantial entity. I repeat, in other words of saying this is an illustration of a selflessness of phenomena is an emptiness that is a form, and a valid cognizer apprehending form are empty of being different substantial entity. So this is another way of saying this. So, and there are a few illustrations. So there are a few other illustrations. So which I will mention this next time. So the one of it is an illustration. One of the illustration is one of the illustrations of the selflessness of phenomena is an emptiness that is a form, and its form apprehending valid recognizes emptiness being other substances. So for Chittamatra, they assert that being an emptiness then is not necessarily being any of the two types of selflessnesses, the selflessness of persons and selflessness of phenomena. So they, on top of that, they also assert the true cessations and nirvana as emptiness. So for Chittamatra, they assert that emptiness doesn't need to be either emptiness of the selflessness of person or selflessness of phenomena, because they also assert that true cessations and nirvana as emptiness.
Oh, dear Kanda. Kanda, since about Kanda, this is the worry. 간다 디시 치간이나 치간이나 란지비 체마다 간다 지치레스 거 말이야.
유지기 최대.
이 최로 간디 디디 최다 란지 체마다 지치레스. 이 최간가 란지비 체마다 지치레스 거.
랑진기 체마.
란지 체마. 이 최간이나 란지비 체마다 지치레스. 다 간다 지치서다 가서 싫어 왜냐가 마두바 안다 세지 바차세도 두스다 된다들이 시야 가지고 마시는 들이로와
지역이 유마두와
싫어지 되는 마두바 가서 싫어지 되는 마두바 다 간다 최간이나 란지 체마 되게 체마 되니 나와 되니 니네 바차치세도 생기된다 바차세도 두바를 해서 다 드시는 거 간다 어디 너무 이거 가서 길러서로와 본 이제 최간이나 란지 체마다 제치를 했어
유지기 최나 당 랑지베 체마디 제지레.
이제 최간이나 만비 체마이나 오늘 또한테 체마이나다 와 순집이 체마이나다 간리나 란지 체마다 제치를 해서
봉바당 체마다 마데니 디 제지레. ini di kazan di chiro ki yu ma tu ba ni di rangjin chema kazan ya bacha ki se to ki
bacha se to da di to ji da ji ji so ni
zeji mi yeah so so Chita Matra also asserts that compounded phenomena and valid cognizer branding it are one substantial entity. So compounded phenomena and the valid cognizer apprehending it are one substantial entities. So, for example, valid cognizer apprehending pot, valid cognizer apprehending pillar. So, the pot and its apprehending and its valid cognizers apprehending it are one substantial entities. And pillar and the valid cognizer apprehending pillar, they are one substantial entities. So, why do Chita Matra say that compounded phenomena and valid cognizer apprehending it are one substantial entity because they are established by the power of activating predispositions.
Oh, did you? That can be the check on it. That's about Zukura. You check on it around the Chema Digitan, the machine chair, then the machine check on it. Around the Sema watch is that zip set in share. The machine check on it around the Sema watch is watching. I watch Zigila, Zigis or the Zis or the time Vigila Makogura, Zis or the Vigila Gogas, the machine chair tapping all happy in the Shivara. Or did the machine chair around with some of the watches. Vigil chair around with some of the Zigis that day for your own to see.
Yeah. So, all compounded phenomena and valid cognizer apprehending it are one substantial entity, right? So, they use the word substantial entities or substance for compounded phenomena. And then for uncompounded phenomena, so uncompounded phenomena and valid cognizer apprehending it, instead of using the word one substantial entities or one substance, then they use the word one entity or one nature. So for uncompounded phenomena and valid cognizer apprehending it, then they are one nature or one entity. So because it also covers the permanent nature.
That did you? That also demarch in dry. That on the Dametara Gelman as a Gelman like
Dametara
or the Dametla Shimash Island. Say she Kashi, not the Magello, Rabas Pakashi. That was all that you got so much knowledge. She was a deal my way. You got so much knowledge. Quajan, one shot, some of the she was it. The moment of one shot of my shade.
So regarding the illustrations of the selflessness of phenomena, so this I will talk about it again. So because there are few illustrations, and some of them are coarse and some of them are subtle. So then we come to the next outline, which is presentations of grounds and paths. Then this has two divisions: objects of abandonment, the first one, and the second one is actual presentations of grounds and paths. So now we first talk about the objects of abandonment.
Not on Bukwanja de la Kansa, does the Sabine Kibata, Limon wishing to Sabine Kiba Niji. And Niji so dear. 사배 단지 사배의 제바다 대공식 그 사배의 제바다 유지해서 competition.
So Chitta Mantra asserts that self-graspings of persons together with its seeds and the three poisons together with their seeds that arise due to the power of that self-grasping are afflictive obscurations.
다 강사 단지 사배의 제바다 강사 단지와 아직 영화지 주관지 비단지 다른자 되게 제일 좋아지 비단지 그래서 주제 자면 이게 쉬워 그래서 내가 얘기 좀 좋아 아니 좀 얘기 쉬워 그래서 얘기 좀 좋아.
So for Chitta Mantra, they assert that the self-graspings of persons, then they are coarse and subtle, right? So the permanent, partless, and independent person, and also the self-sufficient, substantially existent person. So all these are afflictive obscurations. So besides that, such as 6 root afflictions and 20 secondary afflictions are afflictive obscurations as well.
시리들은 denji 사배의 제바데 와타 대왕 것이 민원 투와 탄지 시리들에서 시리들이 좋아.
So obscurations to omniscience, in other words, is cognitive obscurations. So it includes grasping as true together with its seeds and the latencies of that conceptions and all mistaken dualistic appearances that arise due to the power of that grasping as true.
시리의 내림이 시우도와 관자들한테 시리의 내림이 시우디 시리의 내림인데 들어봤을 거는 관자들 또 가리면 하고 싶어요. 와 시리의 내림인데 자 전주신반하기 간다 시리의 관지 소식을 전주신반하기 시리 관지 소식을 뮤직 그 관지 소식을 전주신반하기 관지 소식 시리 제고 왜 제고야 이제까지나 전주신반하기 돌려 두어라 사실 공부 그렇게 말와 근데 지금 거기가 또 소자리 이게 또 쓰는 길이 잘 이게 또는 그 과제 제게 또 시리스가 그 과제 제 길이가 또 오래 맞게 또 뭐뭐 되고 제가 또 문제 지금 순서 반드시 지금 되게 간다 과제 제게 또 시리스가 시리 포인트 또 지금 이래도 거기서만 하지 시리 포인트 또 지금 그래서 이 포인트 또 지금 말해서
So when we talk about, so these objects of abandonment is divided into two, the afflictive obscurations and cognitive obscurations or obscurations of omniscience. So regarding these two types of obscurations, the objects of abandonment, when in the context of three vehicles, for example, for bodhisattvas, their main object of abandonment is cognitive obscurations to omniscience. And the main object of abandonment for bodhisattva is not afflictive obscurations. Reason being, their main object of attainment is omniscience, and that which mainly obscures the attainment of omniscience is cognitive obscurations. So because of this reason, for bodhisattvas, their main object of obscuration, their main object of abandonment is cognitive obscurations.
내리지 타봐 거자 做 지고 내리지 타봐 거봐라 아주 뒤에 또 내리 다리 같이 되게 做 이 번지 做 지면에 뭐 내리지 여러 앉아 대가로 앉아 걸어고 도자 대가 앉아 타봐 순자 이 빠지 챙겨 做 내리 내리신다 그러니까 내리 번지 做 지면
And the hearers and solitary realizers the trainees of solitary realizers and hearers, then their main objects of abandonment is afflictive obscurations. Is not cognitive obscurations like bodhisattvas. So for trainees of hearers and solitary realizers, so their main objects of abandonment is fictive obscurations. So reason being, in order to achieve the liberation as a solitary realizers or a hearer, the main that which mainly obscures the attainment of liberation is fictive obscurations. So because of this reason, the main objects of abandonment is fictive obscuration.
Oh, there is. The Goya de Kanda, it know what's Goya to the Carbo, Kazak Dami, Dami, Kazak Dami to the Tower de Goya, Moja to the car, Richie Toya, Nature Chandu, Muggy Chandu, Niti Tabati to Chedo, Kazak Dami, Bonji Toshi, the Panebo Kate, the Ponja, the Carbonja, Ponji Toshi, Muggy Dami, the Kate, and Nembo Tesa would then be Hidroa. Oh, Nidi Sunza, that can't be conduct done how the one you saw in that race. Rankshanju project, the rest, the people of chicken years ago. And the vision generally, so you took two Mutas and those but they conduct.
This Salamgi Namsha de Swing.
That's one budget. The son was one point of the
Puncture it to sign.
Or you tell me about someone that and that did most to someone that they conduct. And that did it. Conduct a dummy, you didn't know because of it. Only Ponji to Chinita long it. How shall they? What was then the day to read it? Yes, what would you do? So, like a cherish the similar change in the world.
Yeah. So then come to the next outline, actual presentations of grounds and paths. Holders of the hearer lineage combine the view realizing selflessness of person with the small collections of merit for their own welfare, their object of intent, and so here. So for hearers, so in order to achieve the hearer's state, so in order to become a hearers, then for hearer's training, in order to become a hearer, then the main objects of meditation is the main objects of cultivation is the view realizing selflessness of persons, as it says here. So this is the main objects of cultivation, or main object of meditation, view realizing selflessness of persons. In order to eliminate the objects of abandonment, which is fictive obscurations. So they combine it, the view realizing selflessness of person, with a small collections of merit for their own welfare, their objects of intent, meaning in order to achieve their own hearer's state.
That's what that on the got to body does not like the and the Raja original change around the Sena continues that says it says so much that on the cover the other part of what not of the sugar is. When you did say so much the matter, and the machine of the sugar. You are in a season of it. I was 2 years ago. Oh,
and join.
Oh, years and successful on one you want to see the risk of what they put on the long change with the chicken years. And you didn't conduct it, and that did it. On the Karsna, you get one vegetable thing in this day. You get one vegetable, you teach one Tama, vegetable things, Jura.
Gonglam Hamati.
You teach one Tama, you teach Tola. Rola, Yola. I need to teach Yola, say. That Gola and Tam, one of vegetable things, say. One of vegetable things. That did you consider Dami? Only consider Dami Bonji to pushing it that nature miniature word. I need to miniature. Then you did it. Pambata, that didn't need to need the Pambata. I need to judge about young. Being miniature. Nite gola vegetable things contact dame say to number shape and nite gola vegetable things yorwa what dig it and you do any chile you did any chit to go to it Pona not to come back you did power the Dutch will come back to younger
And holders of the solitary realizers lineage combine the view realizing selflessness of person with the middling collections of merit for their own welfare, their objects of intent. So the only difference is holders of the solitary realizers, they combine the view realizing selflessness of person with middling collections of merit. For hearers, then they combine the small collections of merit. Independence on having familiarized for 3 lifetimes and so on in the case of hearers. So for hearers, so in independence on having familiarized for 3 lifetimes and so forth. Purpose of saying these 3 lifetimes and so forth is 3 lifetimes is the practice that you can achieve the hearer state or hearer's arhat. So 3 lifetimes is the least or is a quickest way, is the shortest time it takes to achieve the hearer's arhat. And 100 eons and so on in the case of solitary realizers. So each actualize their respective enlightenment.
Oh, it is. I can't do that. I'm just going to long we know that keep a chicken to go the same about how it. Nigella.
Yeah, so I want to mention. And also when hearers before they become the hearers trainee, before they achieve the hearers arhatship, then when they are on the last part of the path of meditations, so when they are at the final part of the path of meditations, then they are in the meditative civilization, the Vajra-like concentration, meditating on selflessness of person. Then that is the actual antidote to eliminate afflictive obscurations. So whenever the afflictive obscurations is abandoned, then at the same time they achieve the hearer's arhatship. So attainments of hearer's arhatship and abandonments of afflictive obscurations are simultaneous.
And you don't know the Giganda, a long
So hearers and solitary realizers, they also assert 5 paths. So they also present 5 paths. However, they do not present 10 grounds. So they do not assert 10 grounds. They only assert 5 paths, but they do not assert 5 grounds.
Okay. Change symbol driven. I shall say that you can only going to social and also I shall say that you think I'm going to social. I choose to miss or Amazon. So that's the reason why they come between. I should have cashed some of the general change back. I shall say that you should dig over. Okay. I check the show. Since you can't go, so you would have seen our promise was a part of the question. Done it. I did watch.
And for Bodhisattvas, they combine the view realizing the emptiness of subject and object being of other substances. In another way of saying this is view realizing the subject and object are empty of being different substantial entity. So Bodhisattvas combine the view realizing the emptiness, that is, subject and object being different substantial entity. So they combine these with great collections of merit for the sake of others, which they are output of intent, and independence on having familiarized for 3 colors, great eons, and so on, utilize their enlightenment.
Oh, dear. I shall say that you want to watch the Chasma. The point that you should point to Shigarwa. What is it? I can't. Shansi no launch the conduct is such a what we done was not pay Naji for the Uma country she the question since about such a secular feeling. Langa with the kind of such a national issue.
Since I'm behind it is such
or such a national units. Wow. 사주기 나한테 하라시고 나서
장주 셈바로
이거 저기 이게 사주기 랑왕 그 사주기 나게 시고래 공부를 하지 받아 그리고 이와 그래서 지금 시고 그랬고
장주 셈 그 센잠발라 인디 니랑기 테바이나 인디 람가기 남샤마도 요레스 인디 장주 셈바기 테바이나 인디 람가단 사주 요레스 차다 요레스 땡기와 낭시레스 yeah. Yeah, so for Chitamatra asserts that the solitary realizer vehicle and hearer vehicle, they only present 5 parts. They do not have the presentations of 10 grounds. So for Bodhisattva vehicle, when they have presentations of 5 parts, and also they have the presentations of 10 ground as well, like Prasangika Madhyamaka.
Oh, this. 어디 가서 다들 얼마 됐지려고 다 생사라 나한테 나한테 이제 니시에 위와 이 나한테 보게 다야 이게 제라고 제라는 집어지 되고 나가나 나한테 봐 되게 내가 더 줘봐 아미의 양이 되면 이거 진짜만 되는 거예요 다 이거 진짜로 모르겠을 거야 생각 나한테 봐 되게 그래서 나한테 봐 되게 생각 나한테 봐 다 나한테 봐
That's all. So like Vaibhashika. So, Chitamatra 2 Expectarians, they assert that when hearers and solitary realizer foe destroyers attain nirvana without remainder, their mental continuums are severed. So this is similar to Vaibhashika.
그래서 너한테 봐다 간다. 이거 진짜만 되는 거예요. 그래서 다 간다. 그 내게 좀 받고 받더니 또 내게 간다. 다음에 양이는 내가 따로 이거 진짜로 그랬어요. 요 말했어요. 이번에 뭐 시대지 지라마도 같이 쉬는 봐. 약간 남들 보기야 메시지 지시해버려. 옆에 지시하는 데 간다. 저기 한미의 양이 이거 진짜로 그러냐? 야, 같이 좀 봐야 돼. 좀 공부터 저리. 야, 지지. 간이야 매진 제니까 로기지. 야, 티바지 뭐라래. 쉬는지 요래서.
대신
니들 좀 공부터 저리 이제라. 니들 좀 공부터 저리 이제라. 야, 하미의 양이는 만디바지. 만디는 야 티바지 뭐라래. 야 쉬는게 티지 장주 토야 치러. 매진 제니 야 티바지 뭐라래 쉬는게 요래서. 야, 근데 야 농게 요래서.
남기니 보건 덜 세도.
예. 뭐 남기 이거 맞나? 이거 거요 뭐다 진짜다. 남기는 만디비. 뭐야? 같이 더 좀 가서. 같이 더 그건 뒤에 가서 남이 만디바. 나 손동지 왔어요. 그래. 만디가 저기 요다. 그렇게 그래.
장수.
간디 내대지 저기 더 살아 와. 양자 용도 저기 됐다 티바지 저기 좀.
농부.
양자 저기. 양자 여기 용도 왔어. 나한테 빼는 저기 용도. 그 양자ppe 티바지 뭐라래 쉬네. 야, 산지 고발한 농기 요래서 나한테 받을 지라고.
남긴 토와이나 디장조 용자와.
장주 용도 다 양자 저기.
양자
용도 왔어. 양자 저기 토야인데 진짜 농기 요래서. 그게 이게 산사라고 가원 로그스나 니티 더치벌 하치 더치벌 디컵스 하치 더치벌 토네 하미데 양을 만디비 디벌라 야 누구리에 맞아 하미데 양을 디사리야 로아케 맞데 같이 제사를 해서
하지 다좀 받이 퍼비가라
오 디토네
퍼비
야 산지사라 로기 지원을 해서
Yeah. So, true Expectarians assert that when hearers and solitary realizers foe destroyers attain nirvana without remainder, their mental continuums are severed, right? So, Chitamatra true Expectarians, they also assert that when the hearers and solitary realizer foe destroyer attain nirvana with remainder. So when they attain nirvana with remainder, then instead of going to the nirvana without remainder, then they go into the Mahayana path. So when hearers and solitary realizers foe destroyer, they attain nirvana with remainder. So when they are in that state, then instead of going to nirvana without remainder, so then they enter the Mahayana path. If not, if they attain nirvana without remainder, then their mental continuums are severed, right? So when they are still in the nirvana with remainder, then some of them enter the Mahayana path. So in order to achieve the omniscience, so then this these practitioners, or this group of being, then they are also called achievers of achievers of enlightenment, achievers of enlightenment again. So because they have already attained their small vehicle enlightenment, then they enter Mahayana path in order to achieve the omniscient state, right? So then they are also called, a rough translation for this is achievers of enlightenment again. So they achieve enlightenment twice.
That's why not the body, the tattoo to us, so to a killing. And the same not the body. Did it tattoo to us, so to a tattoo with Tibade, Negina, tattoo to the tattoo, sorry, tattoo to us. Ranja, the totally tattoo, what matter. Teaching a Chinese banana, tattoo to Baris. Say your Baris tattoo to us. Forest, tattoo photo, tattoo Tibade stories. One of Shantu Soto is. The Tibasu to what a tattoo Chima is. Tattoo Tibasu to what killing is the non-devotee.
For Chittamatra 2 Expectarians, they assert 3 final vehicles. The 3 final vehicles are when hearers they achieve their own enlightenment, then is their final vehicle. And then when solitary realizers attain their own enlightenment, then it is another final vehicle for solitary realizers. Similarly, when bodhisattvas attain their enlightenment, then they is the final vehicle for bodhisattvas. So instead of asserting 1 final vehicle, Expectarians assert 3 final vehicles.
But then the non-super theory, particular Jima Kenema, that the time of Jibare. When you are not to Jima, a tattoo Jima Kenema, so Kenema. What that's in the non-super tattoo Kenema, tattoo so Kenema.
And Chittamatra false Expectarians, like Prasangika Madhyamaka, they only assert 1 final vehicle.
Oh, that one, that. No, you did something to the Yana program, Shadi program, so your Mare, who your Marissa. Don't see what's so good. You did something to the Yana, something to Kubatova program, Tatu Tibat, to your Maris, in something where you raise. Oh, they are Jinching Marissa, what happened that. Nothing but so bad, and that's something so Kuban over years ago. Tatu Tibat Kiri or Tanjo and another Tatu Tibat Kiri.
Yeah, so for those who achieve hearers enlightenment, then they still have to proceed to the Mahayana path in order to achieve the only 1 final vehicle. Because for false Expectarians, they only assert 1 final vehicle, right? So even though they have achieved hearers enlightenment, because they are not their mental continuums are not severed, they still have to go on. They have to proceed and then to Mahayana path in order to achieve the final vehicle.
Okay. What I'm not about no debug to chip on the body. You want to not about to Tibasu to Bakane, not about to Bachi to Bakane, is that I want to
And some jigs.
Oh, dear. But Tibasu the kids at the dark, and I. You see, he to the Kanda. But teacher race no will
Kami.
or having but teacher race. But teacher the top with your Gemaliada, since it's not now she put your much. Never charts and so just a very almost.
Yes, so this is the difference between Chittamatra true Expectarians and Chittamatra's false Expectarians in asserting the number of final vehicles. So true Expectarians, they assert 3 final vehicles, and false Expectarians, they assert only 1 final vehicle. So for true Expectarians, they assert 3 final vehicles because when they achieve the hearer's enlightenment, then their mental continuums are severed. So their mental continuums are severed, then there's nothing to go to the Buddha's ground anymore. So because their mental continuums are severed also means that there is no consciousness, there's no consciousness anymore. So there is nothing to go to the Buddha ground. So this is one of the reasons why they assert 3 final vehicles.
Oh, don't you know, Dr. Lamed, you're going to report teacher. Sanjay Papa, report teacher, Sigmaria, not divided to go there. Sanjay Baba, yeah, wow. Sanjay Baba, and repeating Chiba, Mr. Chadu Simba, Chadu Simba, and that, Omega, and over Sanjay, Sanjay Lungude, and with the chair. Look at the kids at the quite is mountain, but the Kandano, totally quite is mountain, Angara, quite is mountain, but that in the Jim Dijaranabi. Over that somebody, over so I think somebody, not so did he do reason. Long good about the quite is mountain, what he was. Putting about the conversion one. Feeling like he can do the quite is mountain, but the sugar nose was a devil, which is in my watch, Kishina. What? Oh, dear. They know what the others, Chinese fire. 그 정보를 앞에 진짜 말했어.
기주시하는 기종. 기주시는 기종.
네, 너한테 받는 그때 가서 주주시대. 그러나 니네가 우리 권하기가 그러면 반 세대 사도를 권하기가 정세 보고 하다고 그러니까 뜻이가 있었어도 너로 니 하는 거.
오민
권하시고.
권하주고.
그러니까 정세 보고 하다고
장신 파와
하다고
샤다
고 정세 보고 하다 안 해서 키우는데 그게 무슨 말이야?
와, 이게 미치게 같이 동화. 시바디 니 포르
그러면 반 세대 사도 있고.
그냥 베제티브. 기주시어로. So they assert that it is impossible for a Buddha's superior's mental continuum. So in other words, Arya Buddha's mental continuum to be severed because Bodhisattvas first attain enlightenment in Kanishta, which is the highest pure land, in a complete enjoyment body. And that complete enjoyment body, without a continuum of similar aspects being severed for as long as samsara is not empty. So complete enjoyment bodies will last until samsara is empty. So as long as samsara is not empty, then the continuum is not severed. So next, the welfare of others through various emanations according to the fortunes of disciples. So, true aspectarians assert that it is impossible for the highest Buddha's mental continuum to be severed. So because they have the vows that they will remain until the samsara is empty. So this complete enjoyment body will remain until the end of until the samsara is empty. So and this complete enjoyment body is endowed with 4 qualities. The 4 qualities of 4 features, and the first one is stays. So complete enjoyment body remains or stays in Akanishta, the highest pure land. And the body or the form is adorned by major and minor marks, and the surrounding or entourage is surrounded by Arya Bodhisattvas only. And the teachings is only teach Mahayana teachings, only teach Mahayana Dharma. So these are the 4 features: place, body, entourage, and teaching for Dharma.
Because resources nearby it, common is a common dawson, Dele Mandawson, Dele Mandawson, Dele Mandawson, Tobarese, also Shansinka, Geda, and I got so the super with a column, Mandawa Dintoni, on the ground, I said, one day, but she will or did, so Moja Mandawa, and Debo Mandawa, not the dig for the pay. Okay, so now so such a Mandawa. Reputela, kicking Mandawa. That is someone person to go Mandawa, you are Mandawa.
The true aspectarians also assert that the 3 vehicles are definite in their own lineages because sentient beings from beginningless time have 3 different lineages or dispositions. Due to these, they have 3 different aspirations, due to which they have 3 different ways of accomplishing, and from that, they attain 3 different results. So, solitary realizers, and bodhisattvas, they have different mental dispositions. So, because of these, then they have different objects of meditations, and then they accumulate a different amounts of merit, and they achieve different results.
What is it? 난데바 간다 난데바 이나 난데바 이나 간다 아 내려니가라 간다 공식이 따와라 치바찌요 뭐래 공식 공식이 따와들라 공식이 따와대 그러다가 다음에 그 따와대 이게 치바찌요 말해서 내려니가 아 공식 대봐요 말해 네가 공식 치바찌잖아요 공식이라 간다 가면 따와들이스 치바찌잖아요
방자는 집어지가지.
공식 치바찌잖아요 공식 치바찌니 커미지요 말해서 치바찌요 말해서 공자란 하면 제가 영어 공자라 제가 요 말했어. 공지 내용을 갖다 제가 지요 말했구나.
Yeah. So the view to be cultivated and the objects of abandonment for hearers and solitary realizers, there's no difference. There's no difference whether one's view is higher than the other one or one's object of abandonment is lower than the other one. So there's no such difference. So there's no difference in the view to be cultivated and objects of abandonment for hearers and solitary realizers.
어디를 그런다. 아까 간다 그러니까 때 내가 공지다 반지비 공지 따라 제발요 말에 공지 다음에 제발 반지비 너무나 제발 중세적이요 말에 야 그러니까 가르쳐 요래서나 공지나지 공자가 밑바지네 가다 가나 제나 소사 치준가 대 제발 요래서
보자니.
난 그러니까 공지나 밑비때니까 공자도 집바지잖아요 이나 소사야 치준 요래서 그런가 와 아까 자스나 주소 공부하시면 단자 있는 백과가 자라 패스나 소사마다 니들어서 봐야 되지 소사 두고 말 세송와서 되지 소사야지 마도 소사야라 그 민족 제가 전부 요래서 소사야라 주위에 민족 전부 소다 안 리블라 민족 제가 요래서 리블라 민족 제가
제부라 민족 이제
민족 제가
제부당 균진를
소사 민족 제가 요리 되게 또지 리블라 민족 제가 요래서
So there's no difference in terms of the view to be cultivated and objects of abandonment, right? However, there is difference. There is difference in the durations of accumulating merits and the results they attain. So for hearers, they accumulate merits for 3 lifetimes and so forth, right? And for solitary realizers, they accumulate merits for 100 eons and so forth. So because of this difference, because there is a difference in terms of durations of accumulating merits, the result they attain also there is a difference in terms of one is superior than the other.
오게 다 나지바다 나 내가 그렇게 하면 그냥 이제 이거 진짜만 좀 말이 됐다 이봐 나지바다 경우다 다도 말씀 봐 근데 뭐 가서 되지 이게 이거도 진짜로 되나 이게 뭐 사기살아 어떻게 소리사 누구한테 아주 좀 치도 좀 그래서 나도 그래서 당연히 막 스파지게 봐
So the false aspectarians do not assert that when hearer and solitary realizer fall destroyers, attain nirvana without remainder, their mental continuums are severed. So as I mentioned just now, false aspectarians do not assert like that of true aspectarians. So although they assert that at that time, only the continuum of the mere awareness that is included in true sufferings and true origin ceases, the mere awareness goes to the Buddha ground. Thus, they assert the establishment of one final vehicle.
어디시 나가는 나디지기 제발 도시로와 나디지기 제발 도시 예 나서 제를 당하서 예 센자베 나와서 가서 집하시지만 아니 미치려야 돼 말로 내가서 때 내가 센자베 좋아하고 가서 그 단지 때도 가서 제니스도 놓으셔도 되게 해서 별게 가지고셔
네, 단지.
그 단지 때도 가서 시원해도 끝나서 제니스 놓으셔도 되게 해서 이 센자베 디스케이트 뭐 게르마디 이 주지 내가 센자베 뭐 노랭스 체인스와 제라
졸래.
저 그나서 도와드리는 디스요스 그래서 진짜 제마들 인데 제마들 가서 센자베 데카들 그 디스 도와드리는 기다 좋아서 도와드리는 가리나 디스 상상해서 와 진짜 바꿔라 그들이 간다 진짜로 막 잡아치고 있어 찾아서 이나다 제를 가서 지나야 이제 진짜 진짜 바꿔라 그래서 디스라 있어
So we finish Chitta Matra school. So, however, next class I'm going to talk about Chitta Matra again to give a summary and then to have some question and answer on Chitta Matra school. So next class I'm going to talk about the few terms that I didn't mention just now. So I will very next incoming class, and also that to talk about the important points in Sumatra school, which is all phenomena are included in three natures or three characters, which is other power, thoroughly established, and impersonal. And yeah, then we can have a question and answer in terms also. If you have any questions, then please think about it, then ask in coming class. 第主要题目，So I will stop here. If you have any question, please ask in coming class. That we will dedicate for the discussions on Chitta Matra. We conclude this Dharma lessons with dedications. We dedicate the roots of virtue in general to Buddha Dharma to flourish and for all sentient beings to experience excellent happiness. We also dedicate these roots of virtue to all embodies of Buddha's teachings, mainly His Holiness the Dalai Lama, to live beyond long with excellent health conditions. May their enlightened activities be accomplished instantaneously, and may their holy wishes be accomplished instantaneously, and may their enlightened activities be spread in all 10 directions. And we also dedicate these roots of virtue, we also dedicate these roots of virtue to the world peace. May happiness prevails in the world. May pandemic, wars, conflict, natural disaster be pacified immediately. We also dedicate these roots of virtue to those who pass away and those who suffer. May they quickly be freed from their sufferings, and may their negativities be quickly pacified and quickly achieve the state of enlightenment. We also dedicate these roots of virtue to those who help others, for example, doctors, nurses, and those who help others financially. So may they live long, good health, and may their wishes accomplished instantly. And in particular, we dedicate these roots of virtue to our beloved teacher, Gyaltsen Lama Sopa Rinpoche. May the holy wishes of Rinpoche be accomplished instantaneously, and may the unmistaken reincarnations of Rinpoche be swiftly returned, and continue to turn the wheel of Dharma for the sake of teaching and Dharma, so that we will have the opportunity to receive Dharma teachings from Rinpoche again. And in particular, we also dedicate these roots of virtue to our to LDC members. In particular, we dedicate these roots of virtue to Chonghan, who is in severe conditions. So may they quickly regain their health. Sabe che vuoti tengando wa la cambe na chi va Jetsun lo san da wa yi tembe ni bo re do se je shu jiang chu sen jo ren bo che ma chi pa na ki bu chi ye ba nyang ma me ba yang ko ne ko do me wa shu jiang pe ba hui chi da chi ba dang ko do sang bo de ya de xin de da kong ge je so dang ro je ye da dang je ra du wo tong yi da wa ren bo che ma chi pa na ki bu chi ke ba nyang ma me ba yang ko ne ko do me wa shu ko ri mi da wa ren bo che ma chi pa na ki bu chi ka me ba yang ko ne ko do me wa shu bi je sun du ju be lang chi chi si zi kan ji de lu ge chen na be mo ten ji ga zo la so de zo xie de le du ju ni me de ma lu ba kan de ju ge san be yi xin no kan de su me ten ji ga zo la so de zo xie de le du ju nan zo lo san de wa ya se kyu ba ji ran sha xin ge kya yu ma de be ten de me ba ju be ke le zu be zu de rin bo ji de lang ju be zi zi be wa la na yang mi shun shi be gu jia jie zi be ji zun la ma su wa de ya de ju wei gu ji bu tie wei de da ma ju zhu wa yi de la ji tu zi ba zi be ho lo bo xi wa xi de yi re ba yang jia ju xin la dan de se nang ge du ge la bu jie du ge de be yang du sa be zun ge sang du jie be du yu xie 为国为新港的北当的王马路中为的今日在王的这个作为下边时间把多的有据。